hear me okay? What'd you say? Hey, Brian and son, can you hear me okay? Okay. Yeah, I got a new pair of like headphones that have like a mic, and I didn't know how well it would come across. Well, if it gets bad, just let me know, and I will switch to the old-fashioned way. Mhm. I want to make sure that I'm fully understanding what the source of the issue is, et cetera, because um, what Duncan has created, and so the weakness of the current system, so and what we've done with ZVR is that the current system goes and when you call everything, it loads all the data, and so we've always had we try to keep a very limited data set, so you had like 10 fields, so it wasn't so large because you were loading up so much data, and that could take some time. And then once it had the data, then it said, oh, okay, let me tell you who it's assigned to, A, B, C, D, etc. And so that was always kind of a slower process, but it worked, and it worked when things were kind of grouped and organized. What we've done differently with ZBR in the new workload engine was instead of going and querying all the data and sending it to the client, we go and we just have it tell us who's got what assigned to it by volume. So it says Brian's got 20, Sung's got 50, et cetera, et cetera. And then when you click on Sung or Brian or whoever, it then goes and gets that limited data set. So if it was 5,000, it doesn't have to load up 100,000 accounts. It will just then go query the 5,000, giving us the ability to have larger and more columns, quicker access, and then they can reassign it from that perspective. And so if I'm understanding, from reading the various emails correctly, the issue is that they're trying to query a very large data set, and then they're not able to move it around. So if I'm fully understanding that that is the issue, I think basically taking the control we've written and then making whatever changes we need to make, we would still need two stored procedures. One for the initial who's got what assigned to them, and Duncan I think he created both for the task system, so he can help the data team. I think when it comes with collections, I don't want him touching that, just because I think it could cause bigger issues. But my thought is we take that control, he re-engineers it in collections, and strips out the whole concept of the team because we don't have that in collections, and then just has it return the users and the volumes, and then when you do the click, it then returns the detail in relation to that, and then they can do and then as long as they can still do the batch assignment, which exists in ZDR, so we would just need to make sure that worked in collections using what is currently being used. Does that make sense? Am I on the right page? Right. We've known we need to rewrite this tool for quite some time, and so we made it a priority as a part of ZDR because that's just the reality. So I think though, because we have it written, we've done the bulk of the work. Repurposing it for collections will be the quicker, better way to go about it. But we just need to make that the priority. And is Duncan, do we know if he's going to be able to join the call? Okay, guys. So what I was talking about is that how you wrote the workload tool for a ZBR. What we were thinking, and what I think is the better way to go about fixing this issue for Ensemble, it will actually fix an issue for all of our customers because the tool just it just needed to be rewritten anyway. But basically, we want to repurpose that tool. You wouldn't be calling the same tool, you would copy it into collections, and then we would basically strip out the concept of teams, as well as, it's not going to look at the tasks. We want to have it look at the claims and do exactly what that tool does right now, where instead of having, the teams, it's just going to go and show you who's got stuff assigned to them, who's got the things that are unassigned, and then when they click on that person, it then gets the detail. So that way we don't have to query so much data right at the beginning. If we need, like if you get stuck, you and I can, I'm just, hanging out with Maddie today, doing some dad and daughter time, but I can jump into, we can do a go-to meeting or, screen sharing stuff if you get stuck on the detail. But the only thing I think we might need in this is some data team help, because I don't want you messing around in collections. I want them to be able to, because we have, some store procedures that we want to make sure that it's still fast, and that we're not putting any locks in any place and stuff like that. So if they have a store proc to pull their work list, but they don't actually have there's one store proc that pulls the giant workload. It's not just based off the assignments. So right now they have one store procedure for workload, and you pass in the client and then potentially the facility. So if you run it by facility, it's much smaller, but if you run it by client, it's much larger. What they're probably going to want, and here's where it's going to be different from ZBR, is that they're probably going to want to still have the ability to look at it by facility, and so we would still have the client and the facility consolidated option, and then if they pass in a facility ID, then it would be restricted. We would just show them that facility as worth of assignments, etc. So that's the one difference between what we've kind of done in ZBR, because we don't care about that at that point. The first order, okay, so we're all going to be experts in what I think here shortly. All right, so essentially mhm, yeah, mhm. I think the amount of effort on Duncan's side is just a smidge above easy. So it's right between that easy and intermediate. I would estimate he could probably knock this out in anywhere from 8 to 16 hours. So 3 to 5 points if we're thinking on points. And the reason I say that is because we've got the control, copies, puts it in. There's going to be modification and changes, but all in all, I want it to pretty much work very cleanly. He's going to have the client and the facility drop down. And so from the controls perspective, what he's going to need to be able to continue, what will block him is he's going to need 2 stored procedures, and this is kind of where Marty comes in. Now, I'll have Duncan make sure that he gets Marty his requirements, and I'll briefly mention them here, and then I need to do an email. I mean, it's fairly simple. He needs to be able to pass in a client ID, obviously a group, and then the optional facility ID. And then what he's going to get back is he's going to get it back, the collector information, probably I would say the display name, the ID, and the volume of accounts that are assigned to him for the parameters that are passed in. Then he's going to need a second stored procedure that he's going to click on a collector, and so he's going to pass in again the group, the client, the optional facility, the collector he selected ID, and then he's going to get back a list of everything that's assigned to him. Has not, there should be no black holes. It's like we don't care if it's the only thing we, don't care about it if the balance is zero. So if the balance is zero, we don't return it. Otherwise, it's there for that assigned collector. So he get those two things. Now, what the question is, and what we probably need to look at as a team is right now the workload returns a limited set of columns. The recommendation to start would be we'll just have that second stored procedure return that same set of columns. However, if we're thinking ahead, the next ask will be, can we add more columns? Because people have constantly wanted more and more columns added to this stored procedure, and we've usually said no to try to keep it small, or at least keep it smaller, so we don't hit the max data cap that is unfortunately set for us to work within. So I would say, unless anybody had like suggestions, I would probably, I don't know if Kit's on the call, but I know Kit and Sheila have, often said, oh, it would be great if we had this information here and there. They might not know it off the top of their head, and if they don't, then we just go with, we look at the current workload stored procedure columns and we return those. And so for Duncan's purpose, his data grid would just, look like the current data grid with the same columns, unless anybody wants to have us add columns at this time. Turnaround with testing, if everything looks good by the middle, by Thursday, we could perhaps even have it out to them this weekend. Otherwise, we could definitely have it out to them by next weekend. They've got to run. They've got to run by facility. You can't run it by. Mhm. They've got to run the list by facility. They can't run it by client. And if they are running it by facility and they're hitting that cap, um, then we have to. I have no ideas at this point. I'd be interested in any feedback or anybody who has a thought. The error is they're asking for too much information. There's like a 2 point something gigabyte data cap, and when that gets hit, the system cannot deserialize it.